All right, hello. Welcome to the third episode of the 2-5 podcast. Today I have with me good friend and bass player and saxophone player, Derek Thigpen.
Hello.
Derek, we went to school together for a little bit. You were at Texas State, did your undergrad there, and jazz a little bit before I got there. We had some overlap, and now you're just playing all the time and working hard. Tell us about yourself, Derek.
Well, like you said, man, I got my undergrad in jazz studies at Texas State and did with an emphasis in jazz saxophone. Studied with Dr. Haight, just like you're doing now, which I'm sure you're having all the fun that I have already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially we were talking about overtones earlier, so that was, it was really cool being able to study with him, but went to Texas State, ended up picking up bass while I was there, started on electric, then bought myself an upright as well because I got the bug. And so now I'm playing bass and saxophone in a couple of different groups here and there throughout Austin. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Cool. So you play bass in my group whenever you're available. You're a really busy guy.
I do.
You're a great bass player. What are the other groups you're playing with?
Right now, my main group that I'm playing with is with this guy, Donovan Keith. He's a singer out of Austin. He used to be the front man for Soul Track Mind, but a couple of years ago, he decided he was gonna take a new direction with his music and decided, okay, I want to start a new group. And he came to me, asked me to get a group of musicians together, and I got some other Texas State grads. Actually got Tom Raines playing drums and Kerry Burkhart playing guitar as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's a nice, solid Texas State rhythm section traveling around the country at this point.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool. I didn't know you guys were all over the country. And so you said that was like funk oriented, or
it's more a lot of old school soul and R&B.
Okay.
But with kind of like a newer funky spin on it. Yeah, trying to bring a modern sound to old soul like Bobby Womack and other names like Paul Pena and the Isley Brothers, just a lot of the old 60s, 70s, and even some of the 50s stuff too. Yeah, that not a lot of people would think about listening to.
Cool. So you're a super busy musician.
Yes.
For friends on Facebook, you're always posting when, generally if you see a post from Derek Thigpen, it's like playing here at this time with a little joke attached at the end. You don't always say who you're playing with. Are you generally playing with Donovan when you're making those posts?
I'd say about 60% of my gigs are with Donovan right now. The rest of them are just whatever I'm grabbing left and right. It's a weird kind of balancing act trying to have the one group that you're committed to versus trying to actually freelance for a bunch of other people, because it's kind of the only way to really make ends meet being a musician. You can't really, you wanna believe that you can commit to one group just full time, that's it, but realistically, if you're going to do that, that group has to be playing at least 2-3 shows a weekend to be able to even pay rent. Let alone pay for gas, food, with groceries, whatever you need to get. So at that point, you're trying to say, okay, I'm down for this group. This is great. But I'm still going to be doing other stuff as well. And so, and that can be whatever you want, like either a day job, or you're trying to commit to other groups or just get your name out there as much as possible to be an on-call guy.
And you kind of seem like you're kind of doing a good job of balancing that tightrope of being committed to a group and playing as much as you can. You're the first bass player I go to for my combo, which other than the gig isn't really a time commitment at all. We don't, I mean, it's very much in the spirit of jazz. We just play the gig and that's about it. But I'm sure you play in more groups than just mine and Donovan's. So how do you, I have a few questions. How do you prioritize, and then once you do get gigs, like what, do you have any tips for how you keep all of that information organized? And in my opinion, you're a very punctual guy, which is really good in the jazz world. So like, just how do you manage all that?
Very carefully.
Yeah, there you
go. Well, it honestly took a while to understand how to schedule myself and how to really have a realistic understanding of time commitments and how long it actually takes to get from one city to another.
Yeah, travel time.
And really understanding how much traffic is actually on the road, especially during what parts of the day. Because for me, I'll try and book like 2 gigs on one day sometimes, just to try and get a little extra money, and also just to play more, because why not play as much as you can? Yeah. So it took me a while to understand that, okay, I need so much time to pack up all my stuff, get everything from point A to point B, unpack all of my stuff, and be set up and ready to play by sound check. And if the time constraints aren't working, then I will not. I'll just say no to a gig. Yeah. And as far as balancing the commitments versus the freelance, Donovan's gigs, they all show up on my Google Calendar and everything, which that's a great, Google Calendar is a great tool to have for organization. Especially because you can have countless people on just one calendar, and just you're putting dates on the calendar saying, okay, this gig is here, this gig is here, this gig is here, and you have that, so you can see, okay, I have this time free, I have all this time free, so I can book this, if I need to, I can book this, and Google Calendar's helped out so much, man.
So does he give you guys a lot of advance on most of the gigs?
Yeah, normally he ends up booking them a couple of months in advance.
Okay, so you never have to worry about like potentially keeping a spot open. Like, it sounds like you already know the Donovan Keith schedule. Like, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's like, we know that like way in advance, especially if we, because me and Tom and I, we are the busiest as far as playing goes, and our schedules are the ones that he has to watch out for the most. So we have an understanding where me and Tom, we book whatever dates in like as far in advance as possible as we need to, just dates off that we have for gigs. And whenever he sees that in the calendar, he says, all right, I'm not gonna book a gig there, or I'm gonna try and find a sub for this, or let me make sure that they can't make that exact time, or if it's like an earlier gig, they can still make it. So it's just, it helps with the communication. Yeah. Because then you're not sitting there texting like in this giant text chain of people trying to wait on one person to like say, okay, are you free? Are you free? Hey, are you free? You have to keep bugging people.
Yeah, that's always a weird thing to. Oh yeah. I've had to, not with band members, but I've had to deal with some logistical stuff with booking with venues. The musicians I work with, Israel, Peyton White, Israel Yanis, that's his full name, drums, and piano. You guys are all really quick to respond, and the people who I go to for subs are really quick to respond too. But sometimes people outside of the music world are not so quick to respond, or things change, and that can get frustrating.
I think it's kind of an experience thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way I see it, I mean, I haven't been band leading that long. I've been doing stuff since August of 2018.
You're doing a pretty good job so far, man.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm trying to, you know, keep the ball rolling and trying to get more and more, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with band leading because it's frustrating trying to get all the details worked out, and if 1 hour shifts, that's 4 schedules you have to double check, and it's like I get a sense of satisfaction out of making it work, but the actual part of making it work can get a little frustrating. But it's always nice when it's like the gig works and it's like, man, I put this together, and it's like, I don't know.
Well, that's a thing that like some people will commonly just look over, is the fact that being a band leader also means you're a manager too, pretty much.
Yeah.
Unless you hire somebody to do all of the booking, handle all of the financial obligations, handle all of the Facebook and any online promotion, handle any promotion whatsoever, then all of that unfortunately falls on the band leader.
Yeah.
Unless you start divvying stuff out to people in the band saying, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you post this? Hey, can you call these guys, see what the deal is and everything?
Yeah. Luckily, I mean, in the age of social media, if you're playing a gig, you're probably going to post about it. So that's pretty helpful. But it's mostly the
social media.
The frustrations mostly come from, I think we're going to play at this time, and then everyone in the band's like, I'm good for that time, and in the back of your head you're like, well, I'm still kind of just waiting to make sure it's that time, then it may or may not change. But that's the great thing about being in a college town with a large jazz department. It's like, I mean, I've had, the craziest thing I've had to do so far is get 2 subs the day of a gig. That I wasn't expecting that to happen, and I mean, stuff happens. People think they have, people don't write stuff down on their calendars and act. It all, that gig in particular worked out just fine, but if I was just, I don't know, in the middle of nowhere, where it's like I only know 3 other jazz musicians, I have no idea what I would do in that scenario.
It's a super stressful situation too, because not only are you worried about like, oh gosh, this gig's gonna be really weird, you also have to worry about everybody who's watching you, including the manager, including anybody in the audience who might want to hire you for a potential gig. You have to worry about so much, because then you don't know if that's going to put a bad taste in someone's mouth. There's so many factors.
And it's like my combo is self-named, which is a double-edged sword, because if the combo performs well, it's very easy for someone to remember, oh, John Henrick played. Oh, that's his. Okay, I know how to. But if it hasn't happened yet, but if something happens really poorly, then it's like they know exactly. Yeah,
oh, God.
They know exactly who to blame for it. So, anyway, the world of band leading, So one thing I'm curious about. Well, there's a few things I'm curious about. But so you came to Texas State on saxophone.
Yes.
Right. And you did all of your degree work in a saxophone studio, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how and when did bass come into play, and then how did you balance that?
So it was about my 2nd year in the program, and I literally, what had happened was, it was after jazz history, I went over to a friend of mine's house, and because his band was practicing over there, and I just wanted to get around more musicians in general. So a bunch of us went over there to hang out and just jam, watch everything, and afterwards they're all like, yeah, anybody grab an instrument, we're just gonna hang out and jam for a while. And he had a bass on the wall, and I was just itching to play it, because I've been wanting to play bass since high school, really.
Oh wow.
And in middle school, my parents gave me a choice between saxophone and bass, and I chose sax. And then I found myself back to bass in college, and it was great, because the next day I went out and bought a bass and started slowly figuring stuff out. And I didn't even start playing jazz on bass like right away. It's just, I just sat down and started learning all the stuff that I used to listen to in high school, some stuff that I listened to at the time, just trying to figure out the instrument, really get my hands on it. And then after a while, I figured, man, I should really start learning some of the stuff I'm learning in school on this. And after that, it was just a matter of really taking what I learned on sax and starting to apply it on bass too. So it really helped. It helped out my practicing a lot too.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that Dr. Haight does when we're working on tunes is
goes and plays piano while you play too.
That's great, but in terms of like what he makes us practice is bass lines. Like the bass line technique he has us do on saxophone to really learn a tune and be responsible for the harmony is I don't feel comfortable on a tune until I can do that kind of thing. So I bet like learning to play bass was incredibly revealing on when you were playing saxophone.
Yeah, it helped organize my thoughts better, especially theory warning.
Here we go.
It helped organize my thoughts a lot better in terms of voice leading and knowing where all of the chord tones should be versus where other tones can be, and being able to kind of carve lines and kind of make lines at a very slow tempo, and by slow tempo I mean just in quarter notes. Yeah. And then starting to like take those licks and say, okay, let's condense that real quick, or let's kind of chop it up and see what I can get out of this. Yeah. Yeah, it gives you, making bass lines gives you a new avenue for kind of making your own licks, or also taking licks that you're transcribing, stretching them out in the quarter note lines and just saying, okay, I'm gonna walk this whole lick, and it actually makes a really cool bass line. Yeah, definitely. And one thing that for me, in my opinion, my ears have always been way behind par. Like I was very, very bad when I started at Texas State. Like RL 1 through 4, my ears were just off. And once I started getting deeper into jazz, my ears opened up. I mean, they kind of have to. But bass lines is what really, kind of solidified the classical theory stuff of like, 4/3 resolution, 6/5. Everyone can hear Tito, but like learning to logically land in those areas and then connect them over a typical 4-bar chord progression. Like you don't need a whole lot more to start filling in with eighth notes, and honestly, if you can do a solid quarter note bass line through a tune, and then maybe just break up the rhythm a little bit, like you're not far from like a really, really solid solo, Absolutely. So, yeah. I don't know. It's just bass lines, man. It's helpful. The bass lines are super helpful. Honestly, they do more for the music than people think and will ever admit too, because if you take the bottom out of any music, you'll immediately notice, but when it's in there, it's just like, oh yeah, this music sounds great. Don't know why, but it's just everything's full and
stable.
Just,
it's like a good mattress, like Tempur-Pedic versus like something with really pokey springs.
Oh man, I'm a Serta guy.
Oh, okay. There you go. So when you're playing, like, we have a gig later tonight. This will be in the past by the time this is released. But
we're doing the Lockhart.
When you're playing a jazz gig and you're holding it down on bass the whole night, do you find that you're using a different headspace between soloing and walking? I mean, obviously one is more busy than the other, but
yes and no. Yes, because I'm focusing more on the time than I would be when I'm soloing, which you should be focused on the time all the time no matter what. But whenever I'm walking, I'm more concerned about what you're playing and trying to interact with that and interact with what Israel's doing and interact with what Peyton's doing, trying to start creating something and making something organic happen. And we have a cool moment, and everybody kind of looks at each other all like, that was cool.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, being the horn player in a quartet, you feel a little bit, not estranged, but you feel a little bit separated from the rhythm section.
Yes.
And you do plenty of gigs on saxophone, so I know what I'm getting at, but it's like, I'm doing my best to start. I can hear what you guys are doing if I'm not playing. Like if Peyton's soloing, I can totally understand the nonverbal stuff that's going on between the three of you. I'm doing my best to start opening up my ears and responding to what's going on behind me, because I never thought of this. I forgot who said it. It may have been Dr. Haight in an improv class or something, but some jazz faculty said, like, the worst thing you can do to your rhythm section is treat them like I real. and I had never thought of it that way, and I was like, I've been doing that nonstop. I'm like, they've probably been feeding me stuff and they just think I'm ignoring it, you know? So I'm really trying to do my best to open up my ears and listen to. My ears aren't quite fast enough to hear like particular voicings that maybe Peyton's playing or not, but at least rhythmically starting to catch up with stuff that drums and piano may be doing or stuff. So I'm doing my best to be as integrated into that conversation when I'm playing as the rest of you are, but there's only like a handful of tunes I can do that on. You know, you really have to be really comfortable to like...
A fun thing you can do is, which I've started doing this whenever I play sax on gigs, because there's one gig that I do fairly regularly. It's with this guitarist, another Texas State alum actually, Matthew Montoya. He was in the classical guitar studio under Mark Cruz. And we are in a quartet, trio now, but we have a group where he plays bass and I also play bass, but whenever I'm playing bass, he plays guitar. Whenever he's playing bass, I play sax.
Oh, wow.
So it goes from a guitar, bass, drums trio to a sax, bass, drums trio.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
How is, I'm trying not to interrupt, but like, what's that like for you doing this? Because that's kind of a scary ensemble for a saxophone player. Like not having harmony really, or like some harmony. I mean, you have bass, but...
Honestly, I love the sound of cordless trios because it makes... Not only does it make the bass player that much more responsible for everything that's happening harmonically, but for the soloist, it doubles up the responsibility on them as well to convey the changes that much more. Yeah. So it really, really tests you on, okay, how well do I know these changes? Yeah. Can I make the audience hear the fact that I am playing Stella even though only this much is happening? And it's the same way with the gypsy jazz group that we play in as well. Yes, that's another one that I just...
You play with Terry?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, she started in the fall. I saw a picture, I think you posted it, and I saw that she was in it. I was like, man, this music world's so tiny.
It really is.
It's
everybody
nuts.
Knows everybody. It's bizarre, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do some stuff together here and there. I played on a recording that she had submitted to this contest a while back. I think it was last summer, and she had actually gotten picked to be a finalist in it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was sponsored by the lead singer of System of a Down. That's right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't expecting it, but it was cool. It was fun. I was like, all right. He heard me play bass. That's weird, but okay.
What does she play in that group?
She sings.
She sings. Okay. Yeah, I know she. Well, actually, I didn't know she sung, but I know she's a really good flute player and she does some guitar work also.
Get her to sing if you can. Like if you can get her into a combo and get her to sing. Oh, her voice is fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to keep that in mind. Maybe she comes sit in our group sometime.
Yeah, man. Oh, she would love that. Yeah. Bug her about it.
I will.
That'd be cool.
I don't know if she listens to this podcast or not, but we're coming for you.
Yeah, it's here. We're coming for you.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
Cool. So I've only done one cordless gig in my life, and it was really stressful because it was that gig I mentioned earlier where I had to find 2 subs.
Huh.
And it was just like, luckily, super solid bass player was on the gig, Abel Alanis.
Hey, yeah.
As when he was one of the subs, when I found out he was gonna play, I was like, okay, I can make him some mistakes and I'll be okay, you know. But it was, I think it was maybe just like 1 hour, like just in and out.
Where were you guys playing at?
I think it was in October for a thing in Lockhart. I think it was for an Oktoberfest thing in Lockhart.
Right.
And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I know, yeah. And it was really fun. It was an hour. I definitely called tunes that I was comfortable with.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if we played 3 blues tunes. We probably played 2. You know.
Do you play as many blues as you want?
Yeah, well, and it's like people like blues, but it's like the tunes where I was like, I could hear the changes in my head without any sort of information. Like it was a very interesting setting. And do you follow Bob Reynolds on social media at all?
Do.
You know that I don't know if it's Jay or Ye Yennings group he's playing with?
I can never remember what.
It's a trumpeter from Snarky Puppy. Mm-hmm. They have like a I want to call it like a bebop revival. They're playing like mostly bebop type stuff. Oh my god! And I didn't know this until I saw a post on Instagram. But they're a cordless, or at least the tune they posted was a cordless thing. And I mean, those guys can lay down changes like, you know, no problem.
There's so many groups coming out of. Oh my god! Snarky Puppy just made all of these like groups out of nowhere. Yeah. Just that one that you're talking about, Ghost Note, which is
I haven't heard of it.
It's Sput, the drummer, and the percussionist. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but those two took all of the pop idols of the past 30 years, the Stevie Wonder, Prince, Justin Bieber, Beyonce, Cardi B, anybody who's been to any music award ever, they took all of their sidemen and said, "Hey, you guys are great. We have been listening to you guys. You guys sound fantastic. We want you guys to play in this group with us." And it's just this super group of some of all of these unsung heroes of
That's what
pop.
they call it, Ghost Note?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. It's so cool. And they do all of this. It's pretty much hip-hop jazz is what it is. Okay. Yeah, because that's the new
that kind of
avenue that jazz is going into, which I am totally for.
Yeah,
I love that stuff.
I think it's really important. This kind of relates to episode 2. We kind of started off episode 2 talking about some of the pitfalls of jazz and how it's kind of not as popular anymore. But I think it's really important for popular genres to be blended with jazz because I don't know why, and I try not to get controversial on this podcast, but I'm going to. I feel like a lot of people.
Hello, comments.
I feel like a lot of people hate on this group called Postmodern Jukebox.
Okay, yeah, people, yeah.
And I'm not gonna. I understand the controversy, and I think they do what they do really well, and I think they're really important to bridge the gap between super straight ahead jazz and songs people like.
Exactly.
You know, you can't get someone into jazz by showing them Ornette Coleman.
No,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to I think it's really important that a group is doing songs like Halo.
There's a handful of people.
Yeah.
That'll sit down and listen to Ornette Coleman or Albert Ayler and be all like, this is hip.
There it is.
Love
yeah.
It. Yeah.
But it's like I feel like, you know, and that's just an example of like when you say pop music blended with jazz, I guess they're more of like an arrangement more than a blend.
Well, it's a blend. It's the only reason that a lot of a lot of people on our end of things are hating on it is because nobody wants the cheese in it.
Yeah,
it has a great sound to it, but you gotta admit it has a little bit of a cheese ball vibe to it.
It definitely does.
It's that old not quintessential 1920s kind of vibe that
Scoopy clarinet.
Yeah. And there is that's old. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to listen to that. It's like, no, people are responding to this. People like this.
Yeah, I will support any group that is doing their best to make people realize jazz isn't something that's only played in elevators. You know? I think it's really important to give, you have to give people a bridge to get into straight ahead jazz.
Absolutely.
Because I really firmly believe that everybody loves jazz. But a lot of people just don't know they do. Because when they think of jazz, they think of some nameless tune that they heard going to the 10th floor of some building. And,
it's going to turn into a safe jazz podcast real quick.
I mean, honestly, but for example, the Basie Band came to Texas State in February.
I was so mad. I had a gig that night I couldn't get out of.
Evans, the biggest place in Texas State, was filled up.
Oh, it was?
It was filled up. They had to turn people away.
Good.
The fire marshal almost came.
Thank God. I was worried, honestly.
But it's and everyone was standing up at certain points, and it's I bet a lot of them it tied into the jazz festival that Texas State puts on, where a lot of middle schools and high schools come. There's a clinic and stuff. But a lot of those kids in middle school and high school probably didn't realize they liked that music as much as they did. Mm-hmm. So it's people like jazz. A lot of people just don't realize what jazz may be.
Also, of all the avenues that jazz has taken over years, smooth jazz hasn't helped us.
Yeah.
Because that's what's been quintessentially stuck in people's ears for the past 40 years or so.
Yeah.
After the whole fusion movement happened, and then suddenly stuff started breaking off, and Kenny G started really rising into power, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And,
well, he does what he does well.
Yes, he really does, and he did bebop really well too.
Really? I haven't heard any of that.
At the very beginning of his career, right before he really got into smooth jazz, Kenny G did some sick bebop stuff. It sounded cool. Yeah, if you can find it. But
is it on soprano still?
Tenor.
Oh wow!
Yeah. It is bizarre. I was like, this is cool. This is great. What happened?
Yeah, and now we get that Giant Steps gimmick video. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Where you just circular breathes for... I don't know. Anyway, but a few of the guys at Texas State have been when I was a kid, Kenny G is what got me into jazz. And it's well, if that's the truth, I think Bob Reynolds is that way too.
It was. I had 4 CDs lying around my house because of my parents. There was a lot of smooth jazz had gone through my ears before I had heard a big band one year I went to the summer band camp down at A&M Kingsville when I was in middle school, and I heard the jazz band there, and I was like, what is this? This is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need to be a part of this. How do I do this? Mom, I need a sax. I play bass clarinet. It's not enough.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I started on I did bass clarinet all through middle school and high school in concert band. Yeah.
Wow.
No classical sax training whatsoever.
Huh.
It's one reason why I'm very jealous of you for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because honestly, how is it going into the jazz program from a classical background? I mean, let me hijack your podcast for a second.
No, fine. One last thing I want to say, just to be clear, not hating on Kenny G. It's a different genre, and I guess it's controversial, but I mean, Derek's a great jazz musician, and if Kenny G was what got him into it initially, I think that should be highlighted, and Kenny G is obviously doing something right if he's getting people into our side of the world.
It's more of he's as much as some people will fight it, he is a bridge into the jazz world for a lot of people. Because you start out with Kenny G, you slowly go into David Sanborn, get a little bit into Gerald Albright. Next thing you know, you're checking out some Pat Metheny, and then you start hitting some Jaco Pastorius. You delve back deeper into that, get into Weather Report, take up with Wayne Shorter, Joe Zawinul. Then, all right, we're playing with Cannonball and Coltrane, and we're listening to Kind of Blue all of a sudden. It's just it's a means to an end.
Yeah, it's like the tutorial.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so what you said, classical saxophone to jazz, it is incredibly different and incredibly similar at the same time. Like, I don't know if I mentioned this on. I did some like rough draft episodes of this that I put on SoundCloud. I don't know if I mentioned it in the very first official episode. I did my undergrad at Texas State in music education, meaning I was in a classical studio for that whole time, studying with Dr. Todd Oxford, and I was just balancing jazz as much as I could, taking lessons from Jerry Espinoza, who was a grad student, knocking on Dr. Haight's office as much as I could. Anyway, but a bulk of my saxophone training has been in the world of classical music, and I'm very thankful I'm very thankful that I had that, because Dr. Haight and I have never had up until yesterday, we have never had a conversation about technique or anything like.
Because it was already there.
Yeah, I came in for my first lesson, and he was like, "Do you know your scales and thirds?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like,
why wouldn't I?
Do you know your minor? Like, do you all the do you knows? It was like, yes, yeah. So we had to do a lot of saxophone work in terms of reforming my embouchure. That is very different, especially on the tenor. So because of the size of the tenor, and maybe Barry, I don't have any jazz experience on Barry. I have very little classical experience on Barry.
It's a lot of it's in the mouthpiece. Jazz mouthpieces are easier to play on than classical mouthpieces.
But the size of the tenor and the natural dimensions of it make it one of the more flexible saxophones. And when you're playing on a classical mouthpiece on a tenor saxophone, the size and the dimensions of the mouthpiece kind of give you a helpful restraint to prevent you from going into Scoopsville while you're playing classical lit, and it really helps you with articulation and stuff like that. So I was very used to this very, I don't want to use the word tight because I didn't play tight, but this like more constrained.
It reined you in.
And so when I went to a jazz setup, which I had been playing on when I was working on jazz, but I went to a only jazz setup, it was like the weights have been lifted and now I can do whatever. And I was doing way too much inflection. Like it was like everything was scooped, everything was way over tongued. I could play dynamics for days because it was just easier to play on. So a lot of that was reining back and learning how to maintain the jazz embouchure and throat position and tongue position, which is something really new that I had been working on. Maintaining all of that and keeping that steady and getting a good tone, and then learning to add in inflections where they're a little bit more appropriate. But in terms of like the classical lit, I'll be honest, I didn't really love the classical lit. I mean, I picked songs that I liked, but the pool wasn't very, well, not a lot, it's not bad music, just a lot of that music didn't personally speak to me.
Yeah. Well, saxophone literature is it can be one of two things. It can be a completely insane original work, because if you're writing for classical saxophone, you're going to write something unimaginably hard, and it's this crazy, cool, modern take on what classical music is doing today, or it's a cello transcription. Yeah, and like, there's a lot of really cool alto lit, not as much cool tenor lit. Barely any cool Barry lit.
Yeah, and like I feel like I found a collection of pieces that I really enjoyed playing. They may not have been the most crazy things, but in terms of me enjoying practicing them, so that was all right. But all of those pieces and having to go through like the whole Fairling book and a couple of the Marcel Mule etudes, like I feel like my technique and hand position and a lot of the stuff that saxophones develop bad habits in, I feel like I had only good habits when I came to the jazz studio. So mostly what Dr. Haight and I work on is either sound production, because that's very different from classical, or just kind of universal jazz stuff that you could talk about with any, just lines and tunes and bass lines and stuff like that. So our lessons are pretty much just like, we have a tune that we're working on. I may have a line that I'm trying to put into the tunes, but more often it's just, can I, like pretty much Dr. Haight's sequence for me is like, learn the melody, and it's kind of interesting, and this actually may be controversial. He has me, and maybe it's just for me, I don't know if he does this with all the students, but he actually has me learn my melodies from paper. He has me learn them from Aebersold's because, and I really agree with this just based on how my brain works, you kind of need to know that vanilla quarter note, half note, whole note melody, because, if you learn all your melodies from Dexter Gordon, you're not gonna jive with some other group you're sitting in.
I was annoying the crap out of him with that, because I would learn so many of my tunes from Dexter Gordon recordings. Yeah, because they're really good. Yeah, and they're really awesome. And the heads are really cool. I learned the version of Confirmation.
Oh, that's
yeah. Didn't know that wasn't how you play it until way later.
It's like what? Yeah.
Especially in the B section.
Oh yeah, he doesn't even play the. I mean,
Like, okay, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, right?
So I really agree. I mean, I think it's good to transcribe a melody if you're trying to internalize it. But I feel like the only people or I shouldn't say it that way. I feel like if you're trying to learn a very accurate version of a melody, you should transcribe a vocalist, which that in itself can be interesting. I just feel like it makes sense to...
Or if it's an instrumental tune, the person who wrote it.
Yeah, I feel like it makes sense to just learn it in its most blank, boring form, really memorize that, and then maybe then go transcribe your Dexter Gordons and your Coleman Hawkins, who only play the melody for a few bars. And then you can actually understand what they're doing, and that informs you when you go play a melody and you want to be interesting with your melody,
I have a student right now learning Autumn Leaves, and I gave him that boring, horrible version that's in iReal, and oh my god, I'm just looking at it like I'm having issues looking at this, but this is what you need to look at right now.
Yeah, you have to know it.
Yeah, you have to know, just like, okay, this is like a framework for what I can do. And then I gave him at least like 5 recordings of different people playing Autumn Leaves, just so we can hear like, okay, what are they doing here? What are they doing here? What are they doing here? Why is this in 3? Okay, what are they doing here? It's like,
And it's like, if you don't know, I mean, that melody is so much just an etude about thirds, connecting thirds. Like, if you don't understand that, and if you haven't learned that in a few keys, because that's what really taught me how Autumn Leaves work, is when I had to learn it in new keys for different vocalists. You're not going to understand like what Miles does on something else. He goes to color tones a lot on the melody. You're not going to get what he's doing if you don't know what he's quote unquote supposed to be doing. If he goes bum 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 bum, like, if he does something a little bit different, and if you only know that as the melody, and you do that every time, that's going to get stale, and the band you're playing with is going to be like, is he being creative, or is this what he thinks the melody? You have to be, it's like you have to. I don't know. It's like if you drive, like say you go to work every day, and you can drive to your job every day without thinking about it, and then one day you want to go the scenic route, like you're not going to get lost if you kind of can imagine where you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you can see like, okay, I'm supposed to be going north, so I'm gonna keep following these roads this way.
I'm gonna go northwest for a little bit, and then come back. Yeah. So I really feel strong that way about melodies. I think it's important to transcribe melodies, but I feel like it's more important to understand what a soloist is doing with the melody before you transcribe it. If you don't know the bum 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 bum, like if you don't understand that, and if you don't understand that on a theory level, I mean, you're not going to get what whoever you're transcribing to do, and then you're not going to be able to do anything that's really effective and creative at the same time when you go to play it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
God.
But yeah, I mean, going from classical to jazz, I think it was a good transition. I'm glad I didn't have to go the other way. I feel bad for anyone having to go the other way. I really feel like it just gave me all this technique I can fall back on, and I'm getting quicker at doing stuff in 12 keys.
The Fairlane book is kicking my butt right now.
Yeah, that's...
Oh my God, I wish I would have gone through that earlier.
Yeah.
I'm like halfway through it, and oh my God.
So you're in like the 4 sharp, 4 flat land?
Yeah.
Kind of? Yeah.
So it hasn't been awful, but there have just been those moments of those like 1 or 2 measures.
Well, that's what they all are.
Yeah.
They're all just scale, 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 arpeggio, arpeggio. Oh, there's the tough 2
what is
bars,
happening here?
and then scale, 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 arpeggio, arpeggio. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, we had to do. I mean, obviously, if you didn't get it down, there was some leeway, but essentially, the way Oxford's lessons worked was you have some sort of scale stuff you're working on every week. It wasn't like the goal was 12 keys, but it wasn't 12 keys every week. It was like a couple keys every week, and then it was a slow and a fast Fairlane every week. Ideally, you're doing...
So just a page of Fairlane.
Yeah, ideally you're doing a slow and fast every week, checking those off, and then working on your jury lit. That's pretty much just that's how lessons worked for me all of my semesters there. And it was very... it was predictable, but it's
still challenging.
It was challenging, but it helped me really establish how to practice, which is something I really had to learn how to do with jazz, because with jazz, so much of it is paperless and cerebral. Like it took me a long time to figure out how to effectively practice jazz, because you can do so much jamming and think you're practicing, and then you're done.
But how much listening are you doing?
Yeah. So this is actually something I want to talk to you about. Going back to the beginning of the show, you're a very busy musician.
Yes, I am.
I would assume you do more playing than practice, not because of laziness, but because of how busy you are.
Yeah, it's lately, right now, it's especially been just a stamina and I need to conserve my chops kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it'll be like after a weekend of doing like 6 shows in 2 days, like my arms will be on fire.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I'll just be like sitting here like, oh my God, I'm done. And then I just need to like take a day, like just give myself a day to not play and let everything kind of reset. Because especially if I start feeling any like sort of weird pulling or any weird muscle things in my arms, because that's something that I've been trying to be more cognizant of. Yeah. Especially being multi-instrumental is a challenge in making sure your chops are all okay. Especially if you're... Because there will be... Right now I am teaching saxophone, clarinet, flute, guitar, and piano.
Oh, wow. I did not know. I knew you were teaching. I didn't know you were doing all that.
As well as playing bass and saxophone regularly in groups. So I have to make sure my face isn't going to fall off by the end of the day. Especially because, like I said, the gigs fluctuate, or I never said that, but they do.
Yeah.
The gigs fluctuate, and it's like some weeks I'll be playing I'll have nothing but bass, and then the next week comes and I'll like have just sax gigs just sprinkled in here and there, and then another weeks will come where I'll just be a sax player for like 2 weeks, and it will all depend on what genre. It's the blues, rock, jazz, funk, soul, gypsy jazz. I've managed to avoid country gigs for as long as I possibly could.
Yeah. Well, Texas swing is a real thing around here, you know. I mean.
Yeah, I'm also marrying a woman who loves to sing country, and
congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, we're actually, and she's actually working on getting her EP up and ready. Steven Gutierrez. Is playing guitar on that and is working with her and writing songs with her. I'm playing bass and I play piano on some of the stuff too, and I've helped her write a few of the songs, but most of them, every single lyric has her. I can't do lyrics whatsoever to save my life. I just do chord progressions and arrangements and melodies and I get the core stuff together, and she brings in the most necessary part to connect with anybody else in the audience.
Yeah.
So and everything sounds pretty cool so far. We got it recorded at Studio 601 up in Austin.
Okay.
With, these guys, Mike Ingbar and Eric Malone. Yeah, they're really cool dudes, and it's a really, really, really cool studio.
Yeah,
honestly.
well, I'll have to get that stuff from you so I can throw it in the description in addition to some other stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a great studio to go hang out at if you want to get some stuff, and they have really good rates too. Honestly, like hey, if we wanted to record some stuff there,
that's something I'm interested in doing for sure. I'm trying to. I have one original tune that I haven't. I mean, I've workshopped it in combo at Texas State. I haven't passed it out to anybody. I'm trying to get more original music happening. I like playing standards. I really like playing standards, but like I need to start getting something to separate me from just a normal jazz group, you know.
I have an arrangement of Caravan that we can do. That's in 7.
Oh, in 7. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
It's really fun. I'll tell you more about it later.
Yeah, you want to call it tonight?
Yeah. It's like, all right, we're doing Caravan in 7, guys. Hope you're ready for that.
Yeah, I can see Peyton.
Yeah, I love to say it's like I can just see it's like really, man, dude.
Well, I'll come.
Easiest way to clear out a crowd is just start playing anything modern.
Yeah, we're doing an arrangement. You remember Daniel Kerwood? Yeah, he's a guitar player. For those of you listening, really good guitar player, really creative guitar player.
I'm actually doing some stuff with him later in the coming weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
He brought in an arrangement of "How Deep Is the Ocean."
Hey.
In 11/8.
Oh.
It's really it sounds super crazy. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not good at it. I'm still working on it. Conceptually, it's not too hard.
Yeah, that it works. It's weird, but it works.
Yeah, it works, and it's really cool. But it's like, you know, I feel like new time signatures and odd time signatures is a big direction of where straight up jazz is going. And I need to, as much as I want to stay in good old 4/4 land, I need to try to push myself on that edge of things, you know.
One thing I like to think is that at some point, well, I mean, not at some point, it's pretty much already happened, that jam bands and jazz, they've just come together and it's crazy. I mean, you got bands like Lettuce out there now.
Yeah, I checked out Lettuce.
You got Joshua Redman play every now and then. He'll get on stage with this band Humphreys McGee. There's just so much crazy weird stuff happening with jazz. We're just trying to, and it honestly it feels like it's all in the name of just trying to stay alive and stay in the ears of people.
Yeah. Well, it's like I feel like. I don't know. I don't know where I stand on the whole jazz is dead argument. I feel like I see that a lot. I know it's not, I mean, it's obvious that it's not as popular as it was in the swing era, 30s and 40s. Like, obviously it's not there. I don't know if I would quantify it as dead, but I don't know, it's kind of a gray area.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people are saying, like, jazz is dead, metal is dead, rap is dead, pop is dead, all this stuff is dead. Well, it's not necessarily that all this stuff is dead. It's just everything's starting to get more fluid because you have this weird new country stuff out there that's happening that nobody really knows why it's happening, but it doesn't sound like country music anymore. It just sounds like this weird pop stuff with some dude with a twang really singing
From, like,
over
stadium, like, I think people call it
stadium country. And then you'll on a complete and total flip inverse of that, you have stuff happening in the rap community that they're starting to draw more from not only jazz, but they're drawing from gospel as well, and creating some really cool chord progressions, honestly. Like, there are some really interesting things happening in rap music now that people should be, especially jazz musicians, should be listening for.
Do you have any, like, names specifically?
I mean, Childish Gambino, or Donald Glover, whoever you know him as. I mean, I do know people that you go to them and say, yeah, Donald Glover, oh yeah, that guy. It's like Childish Gambino, oh yeah, I love that guy too. It's like, what?
The Star Wars guy?
Yeah. Oh god. And I forget his name every time. Oh, I can't remember. Crap. But the thing with rap has been happening for a while. I mean, it was happening way back in the 90s whenever Ron Carter would played a whole album with Tribe Called Quest. And it was cool. It was great. Because it was Ron Carter and Questlove.
Oh, really?
No, it wasn't Questlove. It was not Questlove. I need to stop doing that. It wasn't Questlove, but it was Ron Carter and this great drummer that just sat out and they were just laying it down. The album is called oh, come on. I haven't listened to it in a while. It's the only reason why I can't remember and I have to look it up. But all this stuff that's saying that genres are dead, it's not that they're dead, it's just that genres are starting to not really matter anymore because everybody wants to combine parts of something that they like and another thing that they like and another thing that they like, and they just want to say, it's like, okay, I want to make this cool little reggae salsa thing or this cool little metal mariachi thing happening, and that's happening a lot.
Really?
Yeah, that's weird stuff. But it's cool.
It's like we've never lived in a more influential time with streaming.
Yeah.
I guess streaming on its own is its other controversial topic, but in terms of
the Low End Theory,
that's the album.
The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. That is
okay.
Oh, that's a great album.
I kind of live under a rock in terms of music. I mean, I'm so much in the headphones with straight ahead jazzers, just trying to absorb those sounds. I kind of fail to check out new music. That's kind of a shortcoming on my end, but it's like, I really understand what you mean about it's almost like, I mean, there is genre still, but it's almost getting to the point it's like where there isn't.
Yeah, it's
just
really
music, and it's like, we've never lived in a time where anyone with internet access can, in the same hour, listen to jazz, country, and opera back to back to back, like for free, just click, click, click.
Yeah. And
now the whole, should it be free? Leaving that conversation aside, just the availability of unique sounds that you can access is so, it's all there. And then, I mean, every year there's new programs and technology coming out, not only to listen to this music, but to create it. And it's getting easier and easier for people to create their own music and express themselves. And you're getting all sorts of new stuff from people who may not have music training, but they're using these new tools to still generate stuff.
And that you still have the musicians that are still very adverse to try and meld this stuff together because of some, I don't want to say like purist outlook or anything, but just because it's not what it used to be. It's not what it normally has been. It's trying to change into something else and morph into something else. And I feel like that's something that we, especially jazz musicians, have to get away from. Yeah. Especially considering that there are not that many jazz gigs out there. And also, if we want to start getting jazz into the ears of people, then we can still do that through other genres of music by taking, especially because what I do is I take everything that I learned, everything that I listened to, and I try and apply it in the most situational context that I can in whatever gig I'm doing. Yeah. So it's like if I'm doing a blues gig, say I'm doing a blues gig on saxophone. I had to do this a couple weeks ago. We were doing blues and one of the awful keys for us.
A guitar key?
Yeah, exactly. And it was working out in my favor because first of all, playing an F sharp for anybody is just awful. And so you really start to rely heavily on like the bag of tricks that you have and that you know. And you can definitely pull out some jazz licks and everything, as long as you just like tweak like one note a half step. Yeah. And you have this really cool lick that still works. Sounds a little hokey, but it's still going. You still have this really great lick that works. It's not like you're gonna sit there and like take this really complicated diminished lick through the tune because you might get fired. Yeah. But
sorry, I'm interrupting. But it's related. I grew up in Lockhart, which is where our gig is tonight. Lockhart is it's a southern town in Texas, 30 miles south of Austin. Lockhart is a very, very, very blues-oriented community in terms of the music that happens there, which is great. So naturally, that's what I grew up listening to, and I went through, just like every other person in middle school, like a guitar phase where I learned to play guitar. And my first approach to improvisation was through like straight up Stevie Ray Vaughan style blues on the guitar from a guy named Jamie Kruger, who's a Lockhart musician, and it was all through sound and tablature. It wasn't through reading music. I could read music because I did the middle school band thing, but my first approach to improvisation was all very much sound on the guitar. And then I started getting into jazz on saxophone, from Texas State. And so a lot of my first performing experiences were still playing with people I knew from Lockhart, playing blues gigs. But I had my saxophone, which was tough because, when you're playing blues in E and A and B on guitar, it's the most comfortable thing ever. But
it's the
you come with the tenor
thing.
Yeah, you're playing blues in F sharp, blues in C sharp, and blues in E.
It's the ninth circle of hell.
It's like putting myself through that really taught me sharp keys, and it really taught me. It was kind of trial by fire. How, as a wind musician, how do I fit in with people with electricity and pedals, And it took me a long time to figure out what to do, because a lot of times I sounded way out of place. But it's important to put yourself in those performance scenarios,
You have to get comfortable. It's the only way to...
Yeah.
It's the only way to really be comfortable on stage. It's just to throw yourself in uncomfortable gig situations.
Yeah, and it's if you're listening right now and you're studying jazz, it's like music on a very deep level if you're studying jazz and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So don't be afraid to take that knowledge, that music theory knowledge, and step outside of your genre and use those skills and alter your playing to fit within a new genre. I think you'll be surprised at what you can do. You know, like if you're a saxophonist and you've only played jazz, get yourself hired for a pop gig and figure out what works. You may not like playing it.
You're gonna run out of licks real quick, I promise.
But you gotta learn how to quote unquote wail. Like you need to learn how to, because like saxophone in pop that's a reality.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people think saxophone's going. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
So you need to learn how to do that. Not to impress anyone, but just to really be as well-rounded musician as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you want to play music and you want to keep the lights on, like you have to accept gigs, and you need to be able to play stuff other than whatever, like in whatever scenario.
More often than not, the guys that really like have a good that have a good handle on, you know, all the top like pop and cover gigs and all the big touring act gigs and everything, more often than not they are very well versed in jazz, because knowing jazz, it makes everything make sense.
Yeah, and you can step into unfamiliar territories if you have jazz ears and jazz understanding of harmony. It's like I'm trying to figure out how to say this the best way. One of Bob Reynolds' biggest, I don't want to call it his biggest accomplishment, but one thing that he is well known for, I'll put it that way, is for being John Mayer's saxophone player for a bit. And it's like, and John Mayer's a great musician. I'm not saying he's just some pop guy.
He's playing with the dead now.
But it's like, you know, Bob went to Berkeley, knows his stuff on jazz, and made himself fit within, I don't know what time period it was, but he made himself fit within John Mayer's genre, and it's like they both benefited from it, and it both went really, it happened, good things happened because of that. And it's like, maybe, I'm sure this happened, like I bet they both influenced each other, just their sounds, you know, and how they play, and so it's important to be able to freely mingle. And if you haven't ever, as a wind player, sat in with a like only quote unquote like rock instrumentation, electric bass, electric guitar, rhythm guitar, electric keyboard, and drums, if you haven't ever stepped into that circle and tried to hang with them, you need to, because a lot of your elitist jazz thoughts will very quickly disappear based on audience applause. You know what I mean?
Oh God!
It's like
suddenly all the pretentious thoughts just float away.
Well, it's like, you know, it's like jazz people put a lot of hard work into their craft, and it's very easy to be like, I know all this stuff about harmony, and you know shapes, and it's like, but the audience is there for sound.
End of the day, yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's very humbling to play stuff other than jazz, just to know how to do it and to really call yourself a musician. You know, it's like,
yeah, you live in Texas, go sit in with a blues group. It's eye-opening.
Yeah,
to say the least.
It's really important, and if you can get comfortable, it's really fun too. You know, it's like, I love jazz. Jazz is what I want to play and prefer to play, but I still have fun when I play with other genres, because it's kind of like a challenge.
I mean, you've played with brass bands before. I
play in a brass band, Time of Night, which I'm hoping to get Keaton and maybe another person or someone on here at some point. But it's like, that's a completely different scenario. That music is heavily jazz influenced, but it's not. I'm not reading changes when I'm playing those charts. It's very much, here's a chord, here's a tonality, solo for a couple minutes, and that's scarier than like rhythm changes or something a lot of times.
Yep, because you're just like, all right, let's see what I can come up with out of nowhere.
You have a C7, and then you get pointed at, and it's like, hey, make the crowd happy. I'm like, with C7?
Yeah.
That's a comfortable key, and it's like, what am I gonna do? So you should, long story short, like, put yourself in other genres to really test yourself.
I have a funny story about that, actually. We've with Donovan's group. By the way, his name's Donovan Keith. You can look him up on Facebook, any social media. we're on iTunes and Spotify and all that jazz and nonsense. Self-promotion is hard and weird, and social media is also hard and weird, but we do it anyway because we need to make money.
That's how it is. Yeah.
But yeah, we have this residency at Seaboys right now, and but up in Austin on South Congress, and lately we've been he's been just having us just. Yeah, you guys just do something. I'll be right back. Just start off in something. We're just like, cool. Yeah. Somebody lay something down, and then one of us just comes up with something, and then we just start layering in. It's all like, okay, we're doing it. Yeah.
That's almost the most jazz thing ever. Really, if you think about it. It's
just need to.
That is improvisation at its core.
It helps when your rhythm section is nothing but jazz musicians.
Yeah, Tom's a great drummer.
Oh my god, he's such a good drummer. Oh my god.
That's like one of the few grad students who I never really got a chance to talk to.
It's fun. It's a trip.
Yeah.
It's great. Tom's such a cool guy. He knows so much. He's half the reason why I'm anywhere near good enough to play bass, because like he saw me playing bass one day, he just had me sit down and was all like, yeah, let's just play a little bit, and then next thing I know I'm like sitting in on gigs with some of his groups here and there, and now we're playing regularly together like 2-3 times a week.
Nice. I'll have to come see y'all and hang out and meet him.
Tomorrow's not a free gig, tomorrow's a private gig. There's something we're doing on Sunday. I know we're doing something on Sunday in Austin. I'm trying to remember where it's actually at.
Yeah.
But we do so much stuff. We're going on tour again this summer, so that's fun. Going out west to. That's not it. Going out west to California, then doubling back, heading to Nashville and Memphis. This is all in a span of 2 weeks, and we're doing a lot of shows in between that, hitting up Alpine, Texas, hitting up Phoenix, hitting up Denver, Colorado, hitting up Carbondale, Illinois. I think we're still going to Kansas City, Missouri, and hitting up Nashville and Memphis at the end of it. And then in the end of July, we're going to Florida, playing in Destin for a couple of days, then slowly making our way back to Texas, hitting up Mississippi and hitting up New Orleans, and then finishing out that week run in Houston. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you on those travels. Much. Well, it's been 72 minutes, believe it or not.
Oh, well, that's just church.
This conversation has flown by.
Jesus.
It's been really good, though. I've really enjoyed having you on. We have a couple more minutes. Is there anything else, any more shameless plugs you want to throw in there? I'll put a lot of information in the description, but just for people who are listening.
Well, I don't know how many of these will have links, but I will shamelessly plug as many groups as I can that I normally interact with and play with. There is Adam Johnson band. He goes under the name of Adam Johnson and the Cold Jackets. He's a great blues player. One of the first blues guys I played with down here. He is an amazing guitar player. It's so cool. And then Aaron Stevens, he is this great blues, soul, funk infusion, and it was one of the first bands that I ever opened up for whenever I first started gigging out, and it was at Triple Crown before they tore Triple Crown down. Oh god, that broke so many hearts that day, and honestly really messed up the San Marcos music scene whenever it happened, but we are where we're at now. But Aaron Stevens, amazing. Go check him out. Marcus Morales, another incredible blues player. I know a lot of blues players. That's just what happens when you're a bass player. You get to know a lot of blues players because everybody needs a bass player. Marcus Morales, he also goes under Marcus Morales and the Boho Groove, and he's just great kind of blues rock kind of guy. Who else? Tomar and the FCs. These guys, they are fantastic. Tomar, the singer, he's done work with Grupo Fantasma. He's done work with, so many people. He's great. You check him out. They're great soul R&B band. Honeymaid. Fantastic group. That is, Honeymaid is probably the closest thing to the soul jazz fusion in Austin.
Dustin Hunter?
Yeah. Dustin Hunter, Johnny Storbeck on guitar, Lee Braverman on bass. Dude is nuts. He's so good. Everybody in that band is fantastic. Oh, they're so great. The last one I'll give a shout out to is my gypsy jazz group that I play with regularly, Swing 512. And for those who don't know what gypsy jazz is, it is 2 guitars, a violin, and an upright bass. And it's all acoustic, and it's all very heavily reliant on me in time. And it's,
no drums, right?
Yeah, very stressful.
Wow.
Very stressful. But,
all right.
And everything's very fast. Oh, Christ. But,
cool.
Yeah, and, well, I guess I should also plug the John Henrick project.
Hey, there you go.
That is very... I mean, I guess they're all right. Yeah.
We try.
Yeah.
The saxophone player needs some work.
Yeah, I mean, it's more the bass player's fault. But you want to play a gig later?
Yeah, I think we should probably do that. We should probably play a gig later. Yeah, we'll play C7 for 2 hours.
Yeah, I can do that. I invited some of the staff from Lockhart High School out there. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
cool. See if they're gonna be there.
Great.
But yeah, this is fun, man.
Well, Derek, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
Second official guest, 3rd episode. This will be up sometime Monday or Tuesday. Not that it matters for those listening because it's already out. But
heck, maybe back on for a roundtable discussion or something.
Yeah. Anytime you are welcome back. Want to make my rounds through the music building and all that stuff, and just keep this going. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Derek. Thank you all for listening to the 2-5 podcast. We'll see you in episode 4.
Bye.